So far, I have read and listened to approximately over 350 self improvement books. Initially, my motivation for reading was all about money. The goal was to earn $10,000 a month. Books that I read helped me tremendously to reach that goal and taught me life changing lessons. In this video, I will share 10 of those lessons with you. Number 1, don't live below your means. Expand your means. I believe I got this advice from Robert Kiyosaki's book called Second Chance. Kiyosaki says, if you go to a financial planner, he will tell you to save money and cut expenses, so you will stop buying the things you enjoy, such as dinner in your favorite restaurant. He says, why don't we look at the other side of the equation? Why don't we find ways to earn more money so that the price of dinner becomes irrelevant? Cutting expenses is a passion killer. Nobody wakes up excited in the morning and says, I'm going to cut costs here and there so that I have a few extra dollars. Cutting costs isn't motivating. Always focus on earning more, and instead of saying, I can't afford it, say, how can I afford it? From early on, this advice made so much sense to me for two main reasons. Number 1, I realized that cutting costs has a limit. There are only a limited amount of costs you can actually cut on. Number 2, I realized that my main currency is my energy and time. I can use 1 hour of my energy to cut, let's say, $10, or use the same energy to earn $100. I know people who keep an Excel file and write down every single thing they buy during the day, constantly search for ways to cut expenses, go from shop to save a few dollars, and spend their limited willpower so that they don't buy $5 things that they love. All these require so much energy, and I think you have a much better return if you invest that energy into earning more money. Earning more isn't that scary. Earning more simply means solving more problems. The more problems you solve, the more you earn. The path to making more money and solving problems looks something like this. First, you start solving small problems. These are usually problems on a personal level, such as a lack of knowledge on certain topics or a lack of self-confidence. Then you move on to more complex ones. Every time you solve a problem, you move to another level where there is another problem waiting for you to be solved. The more money problems you solve, the smarter you get and the more you earn. It also works the opposite. The more money problems you ignore, the poorer you get. Number 2, what's the worst that can happen? This lesson doesn't come from a finance book, but a personal development book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. However, it has been extremely useful to me in investing and business overall. As you've probably noticed, the majority of our worries and stress are related to money. For example, what if I invest in this business idea but it doesn't succeed? What if I invest in this company but lose everything? What if I borrow money but can't pay it off? Whenever I felt fear and worry before making a financial decision, I always asked this question: what is the worst that can happen if I do this? According to Carnegie, things that we believe are really bad are not as bad as we think in reality. I completely agree with this opinion and have witnessed it many times in my own life. This question calms you down immediately and helps you see that even the worst scenario is not as bad as you think. Very often you realize that even if the worst case happened, you can easily live with it. Here's how you can apply this to your own life. Step 1, analyze the situation honestly and figure out what is the worst that can happen. Step 2, after figuring out what the worst is that can possibly happen, accept it. Accept it as it has already happened. Step 3, once you accept the worst outcome, calmly devote your time and energy to working on the problem. Acceptance of what has happened is the first step in overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. One of the worst features of worrying is that it destroys our ability to concentrate. When we worry, our minds jump here and there. Acceptance calms us down and lets us focus on the solution. Number 3, the wrong mountain and the sunk cost fallacy. Imagine you are climbing a mountain, and when you are halfway there, you look around and see that you have climbed the wrong mountain. The mountain you had to climb is just right next to you, but you made a mistake. To climb the right mountain, you have to go down, rest a bit, do some planning, and start all over again. Now what do? If you are like most people, you're not going down, even though you know that that is the right thing to do. You're going to say, what the hell? It sucks to be on the wrong mountain, but I am not going down. I have worked so hard to climb this far, I can't throw away all of my hard work. Plus, the view is not that bad, so I'm going to stay. The reason most of us refuse to go down the wrong mountain is because of a psychological phenomenon called sunk cost fallacy. It's the tendency to value the energy we've already invested or the money we've already spent and ignore the energy or money we'll lose in the future. In other words, we keep our focus on the past instead of on the future. Maybe you are watching this video now and saying, well, if I was on that mountain, I would go down and start again. Well, let me ask you this. Your parents wanted you to become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, so you did as they wanted. Now, you're halfway through your studies and already know that this is the wrong mountain, but you still keep going. Why is that? You work in a job that you hate, but you still keep doing it and will probably do it for the rest of your life. Why is that? You are in a relationship that you know that is not going to work, but you still keep going. You quit smoking and promise not to smoke again. Instead of throwing away the last package, you're hiding it somewhere in your room. You already get my point, right? The sunk cost fallacy is one of the most common and dangerous cognitive biases we fall victim to. Understanding it has improved my life a lot. It's pretty hard, but I do my best to ignore the price I've paid or the time and the energy I've spent and remind myself that the past is the past. And it is irrelevant when it comes to the future success of something. I ask myself this question. Starting from today, knowing what I know now, would I continue investing in this business or relationship? Does it make sense to stick with this decision starting from today or not? If the answer is no, I stop it. Honestly, every single time it was painful to stop. It was painful to throw away all that work and money, but in the long term, it was worth it. For example, at the university, I worked on a diploma thesis for 1.5 semesters and completed over 45% of the work, but then realized that I was on the wrong mountain. I extended my studies, threw away all my work, and started from zero. Now, looking back, it was definitely worth it. If I didn't do it, you wouldn't be watching this video right now because my new diploma thesis was about the creation of this YouTube channel, which has been translated into over 10 languages and has close to 4 million subscribers combined. It was a business case type of thesis where I researched how I could create this YouTube channel from scratch and turn it into a profitable business. I enjoyed every minute of work I put into that thesis because I knew that I would implement it in real life. I got a D as a final grade for my thesis, but I felt like I got an A. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I only tried to give you a real-life example and show you the beautiful things that can happen if you ignore the cost you have incurred and decide to climb a new mountain. Number 4, the difference between an asset and a liability. As many beginning readers do, one of the first few finance books I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The most important lesson that stuck with me was the difference between an asset and a liability. Rich Dad defined an asset as something that puts money in your pocket and a liability as something that takes money out of your pocket. This lesson is extremely simple but hard to apply in real life. Rich Dad said that getting rich is easy. You only need to do one thing: buy more assets. That is it. If you do that, you will be rich. After reading the book, I became conscious of every single purchase I was making and focused on buying more assets. One of the assets I bought was a real estate property that was generating around $40 in positive cash flow. At that time, I was new to YouTube, but already had a few successful videos and was earning money from the channel. One day, I was looking at my earnings and saw that one of the videos had been making around $40 per month consistently. This was a wake-up moment for me because it made me realize that every single video I'm creating is an asset. It is a digital real estate that produces positive cash flow every month. Both the real estate property and that video produced on average $40 every month, but I spent several months on purchasing the real estate and it cost me $12,000 in just a down payment. On the other hand, producing that video was just a few $100s, plus I loved every single moment of creating it. This was the moment I started to take YouTube seriously.